my dad really felt like he could do anything. You know, like I can preach and I can make movies and I can be at the Grammys one weekend and then be at a revival the week after that. And so it really did take the limits off of what I thought was possible.
Hey y'all, it's Angela Rye. You may have seen me on CNN or maybe The Breakfast Club or maybe on my Instagram. Although I'm always on the road working, there's always been some things I want to try. Some things come really natural to me. The others, well, let's just say they need a little bit of work. Welcome to my On-One Masterclass. I hope you find something you love.
With each breath in, as you're breathing in deeply,
I hope you'll laugh.
Oh no!
Joke.
I'm out. What did you just call that ball?
This is my Wakanda ball. And have a good time with all of us. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You do not want to miss this. Sarah Jakes Roberts with the fresh face.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for doing my On-One Masterclass. I wanted you to teach me how to pray, how to preach, how to be a 2020 thug.
When you're singing in, you're preaching. I've seen it happen with my own eyes.
Girl, no. Not how you take down the whole house and rebuild us again. It is not at all the same thing. But my team was like, you're not going to pray. You should just ask her about how we can have hope in these trying times. And then maybe she could teach you how to pray too. But the main thing I wanted to do is just connect with you. I texted you the other day and I was just like, I miss you.
And now I miss you too. First of all, we were trying to get together before this lockdown happened, and now everything's locked down. I don't know when I'm going to see you again.
Man, I don't know either. I hope it's soon. At least I get to see you today, though.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. What do you say to the people who are feeling overwhelmed by the not knowingness of it all, right? Like there are people who have decisions to make economically. There are those among us, I think, well, maybe not especially in our community, but I relate to those who are in our community the most, who are used to going to the church house on Sunday morning and can't. At least they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Y'all have been wise about that. There are other shepherds, if that's what we want to call them, who have not been so wise. But what do you say to the folks who are in fear about not knowing?
Yeah, I think the unknown is scary for us all, whether we are in a pandemic or not.
Yeah.
And I think it's certainly heightened when you know that the whole world is in this state of unknowing. I think for me, when I have those moments of uncertainty, it really comes down to knowing what I know for today, right? So even in the model prayer, Jesus teaches us, give us this day our daily bread. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, or even 6 months down the road. But right now, we don't even need to know that information. Sometimes it boils down to, like, what do I know about today? Mm-hmm. I don't know whether or not I'm going to be able to pay rent at the end of the month, but today I have a roof over my head. And I think that when we live in the moment and the promise of today, that we have creativity and opportunities that help us to prepare better for tomorrow. I think the thief that anxiety is, it blinds us so much from the possibilities of what exists in this moment, because we're worried about something that hasn't happened yet or may not happen at all. So as much as I can, I try to make myself be present.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I just thought about, this is more my shady question. I'm messing with stuff over here. This is my shady question. But in addition to the people who may not know, there are those among us who think they know it all. And one thing that comes to mind, Sarah, like, I've watched this clip so many times because I just can't believe it. So Kenneth Copeland has this moment where I guess he's rebuking the coronavirus. I grew up in church, like, in a lot of ways. Like, parents are Baptist and Catholic. My mom's the Catholic. And I started going to Kojic church when I was 16. So I get it. We rebuke a lot of stuff in the church. This man, for a respiratory illness, rebukes coronavirus by blowing right in the mic. Like this. like spit flying everywhere, and I just have to know, like, have you seen? First of all, have you seen this clip? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have
Sarah's
seen
like, I don't want to be in this. I don't want to be in this.
I don't want to be in this. I don't want to. This is what I will say. I think even down to people who are still having church, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, my husband, who's the head of our campuses, really made a decision to not, use what we know could be God's provision when we could use our wisdom instead, and to really preserve those moments when we need God for when we need God, and to activate the ability that we have to make wise decisions. However, to your point, there have been a lot of pastors who felt they had a different unction from God to do and handle things differently. And I think part of one of the things that I've really been intentional about trying to do, especially when it comes to the body of Christ, is even when I don't understand how someone's faith may be functioning for them, is to not make a judgment about it. I mean, Kenneth Copeland has been in ministry longer than I have been alive. And he has a relationship with God that made him, prophesy and act out in a way that some of us may not understand. But I'm just really careful about making sure that I don't mock anyone else's faith, even if I don't understand it. And that's not just for the kingdom. I think that as we seek to really have better interfaith relationships, that though I may not understand the Muslims' walk, I may not understand, Judaism fully, I may not understand Hinduism, but to not make a judgment on things I don't understand, and to ask God that he would continue to give them wisdom. I think we make a grave mistake when we make fun of things we should be praying about. If we really think that there's something there that is off, that is leading people down a path, that God would give the leader wisdom and those following them wisdom, so that we are intentional about not creating more division. That's me. Uh-oh, you're mute. I can't hear you.
I thought I unmuted it. I definitely appreciate you, sis, but I I can't with that one. I can't. Like, I'm like, how you gonna blow spit in a microphone and it's a respiratory illness? Like, that makes no sense. Anyway.
The good thing is, and you don't have to. That's you don't have to, but that works for him and his flock, and that's where I live my life.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let that one go. I'm gonna let that one go. Have there been any things that you've seen from the church where I think right now in particular you're like, okay, y'all, we need to move a little differently? Like, have you all had that, or you're just like, I'm just gonna focus on me and mine. That's how I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna worry about what else is going on and who else is blowing on microphones or however else they're choosing to deal with coronavirus and I think the fallout from it.
Well, I think the perspective that I have that a lot of people may have not experienced is, like, I grew up in ministry.
Yeah.
And so I know what it's like to be giving your best effort, and then someone comes along and says, well, your dad didn't do this and your dad didn't do that. So I really tried to focus on what I feel God calling me to do in a season. And to be honest, I'm generally so inundated by that I am not in a position where I'm able to really say, you know what, well, they need to do this and they need to do that, when I'm not sure that I'm doing everything that I need to do. And I think that it leaves me open for legitimate criticism because I was focusing on what other people need to do. I think that part of the reason why I will always be really intentional about trying to make sure that I maintain unity is if I do see another leader in the church that's doing something that I think they could be doing differently, if I publicly make a judgment about it when I could privately encourage them to do better, I think I lose the opportunity to really build and offer them a different perspective. I live in an intersection. I think when we talk about church, we talk about it as one big group, but there are a lot of divisions even within church. And so I do a lot of stuff in white churches. I do a lot of stuff in Black churches. And so I'm often in this intersection where maybe a white church doesn't understand the legitimate issues that exist within the Black community because they live in such a bubble. And so when I use my platform to talk out about those issues, when I use my platform to bring awareness to those issues, I have to have private conversations with them so that they can feel safe enough to have someone say, hey, you need to do better here, or you need to see this perspective a little bit differently. And I never want to say anything publicly that leaves me with no opportunity to speak with someone privately because they've been offended by what I said. But I do think, to your point, that doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement within the body of Christ, that there isn't room for improvement in church. I just think that because we live in such a loud social media culture, that people believe that if you don't say it on social media, then it hasn't been said at all. But I have found that it is more powerful and more impactful when you're able to create a conversation, not an accusation.
Well, that's a very good word. But yeah, it is deep to see how much social media has changed not just cultural norms, but the ways in which we engage with people. I find that on social media, folks are far more confrontational than they would ever be to your face.
Ever be.
Yeah, and that is, I think, so real. Except there was this moment, I remember being with my mom. We were in Atlanta, and my cousin's husband had just passed. We were at DeKalb County's farmer's market. And this man walked up to me, and he was like, ain't you Angela Rye from the news? And I was like, yeah. It didn't look like it was going to be a love fest situation, sis. But he was like, already, and my mom was looking like, my mom is a OG too. And she was like, ready, like, what is he talking about? And so he was like, I'll be ready to cuss you out of the news. My mom was like, no, you're not. But it was just crazy because for me, for the first time in a long time, it felt like this dude is as bold as the people who be tweeting. Like, he ain't no Twitter thug. He might be a real thug. And I just remember thinking that was so strange and so bizarre. So I don't know. Right now, I think especially I'm bored. I have some more time on my hands. I am doing some work too, but I've been trying out some new things on social media. And one of the things we did yesterday was it's supposed to be called Say Word, and it's like a debate segment where we go back and forth with people. And it's so funny because people would be like, pick me, and they come on and they'd be like, I really agree with you though.
well, then you didn't hear the game, the rules of the game.
The rules of the game are, but it's just, I think that it goes to the point though that people are a lot more bold behind a keypad than they are in your face. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. But so one of the things that we didn't talk about yet that I think people should know is that you are definitely my pastor. I go to One LA whenever I'm in LA, and you all have to split time between One LA and Potter's House Denver. How has that been for you? Do you feel like you have your routine down, or there's still some things that you feel like I want to adjust this because it doesn't feel just perfect yet or just right yet?
You know what I am learning about life? The moment that you start to feel like you have a rhythm, the rhythm comes and just is like, you know what? We're going to change the song altogether.
Coronavirus.
Exclusively online. It's like we just figured out a technology that would allow us to go back and forth and kind of like getting our congregations to adjust to this technology. Everyone's on board. They've adjusted to it. And now it's like, all right, now everyone's going to stay at home and the only option you have is to watch online. I think that I am constantly learning who I am from season to season. I think one of the greatest mistakes that we can make is longing for who we used to be in a season that is obviously changing us, but it requires like surrendering to like, who am I now? Like you had to go from being like, Angela Rye, impact strategies, to now you're this CNN commentator and you're all over. And then you have to ask yourself, I'm sure you've had to ask yourself at some point, okay, this is who I was 5 years ago. Who am I now? Yeah. And so I am asking myself that, every day, really. I think it used to be like I could wait a few months, but because the world is changing so quickly and our response to the world has to change as quickly as the world changes, to really not get lost in the pace of what's happening around me and to ask myself, like, who am I? What do I need? What does this moment require of me? And do I have what it takes to stand up to it? Or do I need help and tools and resources? So I would say that we had adjusted and now we are adjusting to preaching in an empty room and allowing the online community to really build community within their own homes.
How does that feel, Sarah? Like I was watching and I'm like, man, there's no like audience response. And as much as I'm definitely not a preacher, for me the thing that kind of keeps me going in a speech is like whether it's the head nod or
them falling to sleep and you're like, okay, or looking confused. It's like, okay, that didn't make any sense. So now it's just you up there and you just kind of got to like really trust what God gave you. It is, I think, I am a conversationalist. Part of the reason why I like to kind of like tell stories and engage with people is because I get so nervous that when I feel like I'm having a conversation with people, I have less anxiety about speaking. And so I thought in a way, maybe because people weren't staring at me, that it would be easier. Then I got in an empty room and I was like, this is never going to work. Yeah, what am I going to do now? Yeah. And then, you find your rhythm and it really comes down. I tell you what it has done. It has made me really stand on my purpose. Like, what you believe when you don't have anyone in the room to applaud what you're saying. I think a lot of times we can play into the crowds. Like, we know when they like when we say X, Y, and Z. Well, when they're not there, all you have is to stand on what you believe God is telling you to say in that moment. And that's whether you're a preacher or you are defending the rights of marginalized people. Like, we're going to know what you really believe when it is just you and whatever message that you have to share with those people. And so once I got over my norm being disrupted, it really brought me back to my core. Like, the reason why you started speaking is because you believe something about God that you felt like you needed to share. And so rising to the occasion of the moment means doing it even when it feels awkward.
So in addition to this time, you talked about who you were 5 years ago versus who you are today and what shifted. What has that answer been for you when you're asking yourself every day? If you ask yourself today, what's that answer today?
Jeez. 5 years ago, I think I was concerned about whether I had a gift that could remain. I feel like for me, me speaking and writing kind of caught me by surprise. I didn't know that I was effective at that and that it would touch people. And then I wondered if it was sustainable or if it was just like this overnight moment that could easily be taken away from me. And what I have learned is that it wasn't necessarily the gift, it was my heart posture that made the difference. And as long as I had a heart to want to serve, and I didn't care what that looks like, that I would be fine. I had to really break myself from needing things to stay the same way or to be on a trajectory that I understood, and to really hone in more on like, what is the heart that brought you into this position? If I can maintain my heart, I think that I'm a preacher. So I'm thinking about David. Like, David had to maintain his heart from being a shepherd to being king. And when we see him lose that heart posture, we see him start to lose things because he lost the heart that was connected to what promoted him. And so I kind of live in this space now where before I thought like, oh, I got to get invited here. I need to speak here. I need to write this. I had this pressure to keep performing, that now it's less of a performance and more of an existence. And I'm asking myself constantly, like, would you do it if you were doing it at the grocery store? Would you do it if the video doesn't go viral? Will you continue to share this message no matter what? And I am more confident now than I was 5 years ago that this is who I am, and I work anywhere I go, and I don't need people to validate it or approve it for it to be real. I just need to be authentic in sharing it.
Ooh, that's so good, Sarah. I love that for so many reasons. I think I have a younger cousin who reached out to me the other day. She's gonna kill me, but I'm still gonna tell it. She said that she was thinking about modeling, and my natural inclination was like, man, there are so many people who don't have her brain, and I don't mean that like they don't have brains to model. It just means that like she has a very unique like academic gift. You know what I mean? Like. So I was like, well, can you do that as a side hustle? And she was saying that her reasons for wanting to do this were because she likes to be able to set her picture up. She knows exactly how she should look, and she can do that. I'm like, that ain't what you get to do as a model, right? Like, that's not what gets to happen. And so I asked her, I said, if you don't get to see the likes, like if it's not about somebody else's response to your Instagram picture, would you still want to do that? And she was like, that's a good question. And the crazy thing, Sarah, just like what you were saying a moment ago, it was something that I had to gut check myself on in that moment too. Like, what are you really putting this up for? Like, what is this? Is this, is this content to feed someone? Is it to make someone laugh? Is it because you really enjoy doing it? What is the purpose? And I think it's okay for you sometimes to do something because you want to inspire someone or give them hope or give them joy. But at the heart of it, if you're miserable, then that's probably not for you. You know what I mean? If it really stretches you beyond the comfort zone where you've reached, it probably is not for you, at least not yet. So that just really resonated with me, what you were saying, because I feel like there are still some decisions that I make in my life where I'm like, this ain't really what I want to do, but there's something in me that makes me feel like I have to. You know, what is the have to? And if you look normally behind the have to is written by fear. And out of fear comes desperate decisions. And out of desperate decisions come you being pretty miserable, So anyway, what you just said was really resonating with me. There's so many questions I have. So one of the things that I love about you is your hustle. Like you are, this amazing preacher and teacher, prayer warrior. Y'all, she will pray in your text messages. You are like wise beyond your years. And sometimes I hate when people say that because it sounds like an affront to young folks. You are younger than me, but I feel like you got the wisdom of a praying church grandmother, not just a mother. And also like fashionista through Women Evolve, like this dope organization, Women Evolve, where you're doing these conferences, you're doing tours all over the country. And I'm just like, Sarah don't sleep, bro. Like she
I
doesn't
know.
sleep.
I'm tired right now.
You are?
No.
What does your sleep schedule look like? And how do you have all that energy to do all this stuff?
Sleep is really important to me. I want to start off by saying that it is my best friend in the whole world. I love it so much. And we have 6 children, they all live in
whole Black Brady bunch over there.
Okay, it is a whole thing. I try to only do things that are organic to my passion and that I can kind of all make work together. So I think it looks like maybe more work than it is. Not to say that it's not a lot of work, but I don't do a lot of random stuff. Everything I do is tied together. So I taught this message about like God being a God of systems, how everything he does work together. I think even this virus shows that humanity all works together, right? It's a system. And so I think if you're going to build anything, that it needs to have a system. Like you can't just randomly say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because you're going to be stretched so thin. But when everything you do kind of works together and you see how it works together, then I think it's easier to accomplish more while doing less. And so I try to make everything that I do, from Woman Evolve, the clothing line, to the podcast, to the tours and conferences, down to even what we do within our ministries, all work towards a common goal. And because I have that going, that helps me a lot. I think the other thing is when I'm tired, I just admit that I'm tired. And I try not to be the strong friend and superwoman all of the time. And I let my team know when I'm struggling, like this week ain't my week. Like, I'm sorry. Like this, I know you need me to do this, but this ain't the week that I'm going to be able to do that. And it helps them to see that I'm also human as well. And I extend them the same grace too, because when you do have a lot of stuff going on, it taxes your team as well. And so I try to be patient with them. So when we're on. Like when we're touring, we're preparing for the tour, we're preparing for conference. Like I expect you to be available 24/7 because we in the fire. And when we're off and I'm at home, like I expect you to go to the beach or take a drive down to Orange County and get what you need, because when it's time for us to be off, I want you to be all the way down as well.
Do you think that growing up with the parents you have, does that the fact that, like, well, number one, I can't remember a bigger conference than Women Now Are Loose, like growing up in church. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that has at all shaped your drive and the way that you see these systems, because you saw them happening? Like, really, your dad, Sarah, and your mom, because I think your mama don't get enough credit.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that like having them doing that in front of you, even as a child, had to guide what you think are systems and what makes sense in terms of connectivity for reaching people in the kingdom and outside the kingdom. Do you think that that influenced you in the way in which you move now quite a bit?
Definitely. And I think that that is really important for parents to understand is that at the end of the day, you determine what's normal for your child. So
Wow.
it is not abnormal for me to think that I can do X, Y, and Z and it can all work together because that is what was normal for me. I think one of the things that I try to encourage couples as they're building their families and determining what their life is going to look like, that you get to determine what's normal. If it's a toxic relationship, then that becomes normal. They don't see it as toxic. You know it's toxic, but that is their normal. And people are always going to first start where what is normal with them before reaching beyond the norm. And so certainly I was exposed to, my dad really felt like he could do anything. Like I can preach and I can make movies and I can be at the Grammys one weekend and then be at a revival the week after that. And so it really did take the limits off of what I thought was possible. Now, to dream it is one thing, to actually activate it and put it into structure and system is another. I don't feel like I was exposed that much to the inner workings of it. I think I got to live in the overflow of what happened. So I was taken aback at how hard it is to build something from the ground up and to take an idea that is in your head and literally manifest it. And my father's definitely like a pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of person. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to give you my team. I'm going to give you a check. I know that has been someone's testimony, but my father's like, oh, if that's your dream, you better start saving for it and you better start working towards it. And, and then once it's established and he sees that you're not going to be wasting his time and money and resources, he'll be like, okay, well, maybe you could talk to someone over here about making that next dimension of your deal really explode. But he wants to see that you're going to work for it. And I think part of me having my son at 13, as challenging as that was, it really taught me like, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to get up when you don't feel like it. You're going to have to feed this baby. You're going to have to finish school because you're going to be the only one who's able to provide a future for him. My parents didn't really hand us things, even though we lived within their overflow. Mm-hmm. And so I think that hustle really started from my trauma. That's why people are always saying that you can turn your pain into purpose, because your pain is there to teach you lessons and there's wisdom in those moments. And when you learn to activate and channel them into health and growth, I think that you're experience a version of yourself you didn't know existed.
Wow. And I think that's the other thing too, Sarah, like even watching this this Clark sisters biopic, which I think I text you about a little bit. That to me was so deep. It was some triggers that it hit for me.
Let's talk about it.
Huh?
I said, let's talk about it.
Yeah, triggers that it hit for me. And there were things about the church that I just like remembered fondly, and one of the things in the movie that frustrated me was, when Denise gets pregnant, of the Clark sisters and out of wedlock, and like all of the things that it, create the controversy that it creates in church. I remember, Sarah, and I don't think I've ever told you this, but I had this parachurch ministry called Young Women of Virtue in college. And part of the thing was me starting it because I opposed like the way that church folks, and I'm not talking about the children of God, but church folks did people who, had a baby out of wedlock. So we started this thing so that we could give women baby showers. Because they, in my church anyway, I know it's not all churches, but in my church, that you couldn't have a baby shower if you were a teenage mother. Like, you're not, and it's like, why are you punishing the child? So of some of your experiences with being pregnant so early, were there moments where you were like, how is this godly? How are y'all acting, godly towards my child who had nothing to do with this? Or to me, who, as my pastor used to say, and I think this part is right, made seemingly made a mistake, and I got caught, but y'all didn't, right? Like you, right? So what was that experience like for you?
My parents were supportive in that they, didn't. There's just so many PKs who have experienced their parents being the ones who added to their trauma.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't experience that with my parents, but what I experienced from the church, I think it's just like social media. You scroll past all the good comments, and the negative ones are the ones that stand out the most to you. Those negative moments, like I needed to get up in front of the church and apologize. And my father's like, absolutely not. And, this lady sent me this blanket, and she talked about because I had my baby out of wedlock that my baby was going to die. And she was sending this blanket for me to bury my baby in.
Oh my God.
And I think that is the number one reason why I always said I would never be in ministry. It's just I didn't want to have to look at those same people who felt like I wasn't qualified. And I think that what has made perhaps my ministry what it is that I went back for girls like me.
Yeah.
I went back for people who, needed someone to say, I still want to figure out who God is, even though I've been scarred and I've been wounded. I feel like I went back for the lost sheep. And I'm protective over the church because when we say, the church does this, the church does that, well, like I'm a part of the church, so I can't talk about something that I am a part of. That doesn't mean that I let things slide, but I am protective about like not jumping on that bandwagon of, oh, this is why I don't go to church, this is why I don't do church. Because I'm trying to win people over into the kingdom, right? And I don't want to be creating division within the kingdom while building the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes building the kingdom means inspecting the areas of the kingdom that are shaky, that are causing pain and issues and trauma. But I try to make sure that at least I can tell people that with my own life and my own character and my own integrity, I can tell you that God is real. I can tell you that you don't have to be perfect. I can tell you that it doesn't mean that things are going to be easy, but that all things are going to work together for your good. And I think that if we can all take responsibility for our role, that maybe it will decrease the damage of people who, I don't even know if I can say that with good intentions, try to protect the word, but have certainly caused a lot of hurt and a lot of pain within people. I think if I were talking to someone now who's listening and they're like, I kind of don't do church now because of what I've experienced, that I would just tell them that there's still good ones left.
Yeah.
That bad experience doesn't have to define all of us. And at your own time and in your own way, when you're ready to dip your toe back in the water, that if you do it again, that this time don't let the people turn you off from God altogether. We meet a lot of people, especially in LA, who are like, I stopped coming to church because whatever reason, fill in the blank, and I'm kind of on a journey now. And I try not to condemn them. I try to give them room to be on whatever journey they're on, because one thing I know about God is when I was on my journey, he found a way back to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that as long as we give people room, people need room. They need room. Like, I think part of the reason why religion is so annoying to people is that it doesn't give you any room. You can't ask any questions. You just got to do what you're told to do, and that's it. And you got to deal with the pain and never ouch and trust God, and God's going to, all things are working together for your good. But what about the fact that it's not working? It doesn't look like it's working right now. We don't give people room. Right. And so I think one of the best things that we can do is to give people room. And there are a lot of church communities that I feel are growing and developing into that, but it's taking time, and you got to be patient with us. The same way you'd have to be patient with a therapist as you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. That's the same thing with the church.
Yeah, we write church off quick. We treat church like we treat Black-owned businesses. Like, you
For
go
sure.
one time, you got one time to get it right. And if you don't get it right this one time, I ain't going to none of y'all no more. Like, that's...
But Target can overcharge you and charge you twice for something. I'm going to come back next week. Y'all better have y'all stuff together.
I'm going to come back tomorrow. Like, most definitely. It is amazing what we will extend grace to and what we won't. But the other thing I'm curious about is how you're using this time. So I do want to acknowledge, I think for both of us, a point of privilege is we can shelter in place because there's roofs over our heads.
Right.
There are spaces that I think we both tap into creatively and spiritually. That means that we can flow a little different than people who have to decide whether or not they're going to jeopardize their livelihood by being the essential worker that goes to work. But saying all that and not brushing any of that aside, because I know it's all serious, and the folks who can't use this time because they're not well, they're sick with the virus or any other way. How have you used this time? What has this time meant to you? What has God spoken to you while you've been, on I'm saying lockdown. Even lockdown is a point of privilege because there's people really on lockdown in jail, right? But what has this time meant for you, and how have you shifted spiritually and energetically as a result of what I think has really been a reset for so many of us?
Well, when this first started, I was really tired. I had just come off of tour, like literally just came off of tour, and was thinking we're going to go on vacation. I had a few more speaking things to do, and then the world shifted. Like it felt like I left the world one place on tour, and I came back and it was in another space. And I had to really give myself permission in those first couple of weeks to like rest and recalibrate, because I do think I instantly felt this need to kind of like, okay, well, you're home. You can't just be sitting at home. You're going to get lazy. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You need to kind of hustle. But I gave myself permission to rest, connect with my husband and family. I think that what I'm really doing is allowing creativity for my next to come to me. I think when this first started that I probably underestimated how long it was going to be around. Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, in a few weeks we'll be out of this. And what do you want to be your testimony when we're out of this? And now I'm beginning to see that like life as we knew it may not come back for quite some time. And in some cases, not at all. And so I'm trying to be sensitive to not wanting things to work in a way that I am familiar with, and being open to the possibilities. And I think that really comes from a place of peace and stillness and allowing creativity to come to me. So creativity has created everything that's in my life right now, that everything started with an idea. And that idea came from a place of rest. And so I'm trying to balance the need to get things done and to push and to complete projects, but also leave space for creativity and rest, and honestly to just like not be a machine. I think that when I get, and you're like this because you travel more than I do, and I travel.
I don't think that. I think it might it might be equal. Because when you go, you're going, Sarah. So I think, like my busy times are like the first quarter of the year, like it's nonstop, like Martin Luther King Day to Women's History Month, except for I had 5 things canceled in Women's History Month. Yeah. But like when you're like on tour, your tour dates are just as compact, I think, as like my speeches.
Well, I don't know, man. I know that for sure. I need something fresh. And I think that I need to not know. I hate it because on one hand, I love having stability. I love having routine. But I also know that I am not at my best when I can guess what my tomorrow is. But I'm really at my best when I'm kind of depending on God for what next is going to be. And so I'm learning to release the control that I like to have over my life. Oh, yes.
Lord.
Release the control that I like to have over my life. And to wake up each day saying, what does today hold? What creativity is in today? And I don't mean just creativity for my work and my career, but like for my marriage, for my children, like cooking all of the time.
What you been cooking? That's what I want to talk about. What you been cooking? I had to go shallow for a minute because I'm hangry right now. I need to get some food. What you been cooking? Because people don't know that y'all can cook. The Jakeses can cook. Okay, y'all.
He likes to cook. I mean, so, and that's the other thing is like, so now I need to come up with like, so I've been doing like salmon salads and like trying to be healthy, but my staples, especially in stressful seasons, come down to like pound cake, fried chicken, homemade biscuits. So I need to break that fat demon.
I need a homemade biscuit recipe.
I got a recipe that's going to change your life.
That's what we should have did today, made some doggone biscuits, because I made some biscuits the other day and them things was hard in 3 seconds. I was like,
you follow Darius Cooks on Instagram?
Who?
Sis. This man cooks.
What? Okay, I need to look at him. His name is Darius?
Darius Cooks. I'm going to send it to you. All he does is cook, and he be posting stuff of him eating it, and it makes me hungry. I could have just eaten But he's got this cream cheese biscuit recipe that it's like a Popeyes biscuit at its finest, like the finest of a Popeyes biscuit.
Oh,
it's
my God.
light and airy and
Sarah,
fluffy.
you gotta send me this today, because that's the thing. Like, I know that, like, I have not been outwardly stressed, right, about this, but there are moments where I feel like the anxiety rising a little bit. It definitely did when the earthquake hit the other day. It woke me up, felt like my whole house was waving.
But why didn't nobody else feel the earthquake? My husband felt it, but there's 8 people in my house, and there was only 3 of us. I'm like, the whole earth is moving right now.
Period. And I was like, let me tell you how I responded, because you hit control. We're gonna go back to the biscuits, but you hit control in this. And I'm like, God, can you just give me like partial credit, because I understand I'm controlling, but like, can you not shake that? Because I was like, yo, we already got the pandemic. Okay, like, I don't know what types of signs we need from the book of Revelation, but like, is the world ending right now? Like, you just gonna crack open the earth and it's all about to sink. So I'm getting up like, I'm about to go. And I don't know where I'm going, but I was about to go. I was about to run, which also was crazy, because I talked to my therapist earlier today. I was like, so I'm still dealing with running from stuff, because I was getting up and about to run from an earthquake. Where was I going?
Where are we going?
Where was I going? I was ready to go. Anyway, but yeah, I still got my control issues. I'm working through them.
Was that your first earthquake?
No, so in Seattle, you know, I'm from Seattle. There was an earthquake. The last earthquake I remember that was really bad, it was when I was in college, and I like drove. It shook. We were in class, and I called my dad. I was like, I couldn't get to him at first because all the lines were messed. Then I called him. I was like, Daddy, you need to meet me in the CD. That's the Central District, because I was coming from University of Washington. I was like, meet me in the CD so I could follow you home, because I wasn't about to drive home by myself. And he met me. Like, I'm like, but my dad was like, come on, baby, let's get something to eat and let's go. But yeah, like, I've never done earthquake. I've always been running from the earthquake. So the thing is, like, if the earth shake again, I'm be on a path to running. But if it's just, I mean, it's running right with me.
Wherever you go, I go. So
right. You can't escape this, sis. Oh, that's so bad. But yeah, I've been stressed cooking for sure. I'm eating some of it. I definitely have gained a good 4 pounds. My stretch pants elastic was tight the other day. So that's where I knew I needed an intervention. So this week's been, I've been eating a little cleaner, but it's been okay.
It's a struggle.
I don't know. And I saw you cook some little nice stuff online, but I was like, she ain't telling us all that she makes. She making something that's not as healthy as a salmon salad.
Yeah, I have been. I mean, I have to balance it, because food is my love language.
Girl.
And I do it a lot. So I can't fully let myself go the way that I would want to. One thing I have maintained, though, is like there will be some type of sugar in this house. I am not going to go through a pandemic and not have some type of cake or cookie just on standby. Yes. I don't have to eat it, but it needs to be available to me if I need it.
What's available right now? I just want to know. Because I might have to send an Uber to go get me one. What is
chocolate cookies are available right now. I have a carrot cake recipe that is amazing. A chocolate cake recipe that I got a steady rotation around here is what I'm saying. Okay, I won't do it.
I love that so much. I really do. I really, really do. And I hope that on the other side of this, for everybody who's able, that we are okay with resetting. Like, everything does not need to go back the way it was.
Right.
What do you think? There was this piece that came out, I think that was yesterday, that talked about some of the things that we could afford to leave behind, and to like, what do you think are some of those things? What should we be leaving behind?
I was writing something for Woman Evolve, and I was talking about how when I went to the grocery store for the first time after everything popped off, like, people had on their masks and their gloves. People, we need to keep washing our hands, but our hands. I'm not even going to act like I was washing my hands the way that they tell us to wash our hands, because I'm not. I mean, I was washing my hands the way they taught me in preschool, which is like boom, 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 bam. But like the way we wash our hands now, we need to keep that. But anyways, when I was at the grocery store, I saw these people in their masks and their gloves, and I kept thinking to myself, man, like everyone is just one exposure away from their life being radically changed. And I felt so much empathy for everyone I walked past. Like, I wonder if they're going to be exposed. I wonder if they have been exposed. I just saw people. I didn't just see someone who was standing in my way in the aisle. I saw someone who was going through this similar trauma that I was going through. And as I was writing, I really felt like I shouldn't need a pandemic to show me that. I should walk around every day looking at people, realizing that they are one divorce, one job loss, one phone call, one disease away from having their life radically changed. And I think that that is true whether we're in a pandemic or not. And I think in the same light, like even when I was checking out at the grocery store, I told the lady, like, thank you guys for everything you're doing, which means that they're also like one kind exposure, one kind gesture, one loving gesture away from having their day a little bit lighter. And I think that what it is really teaching us that I don't think we can afford to go back to is how connected we are as a humanity. I think that even for our civil rights issues, to recognize that we do not live in silos. Part of the reasons why we're yelling so loudly that Black Lives Matter is because if they do not matter in this world, then this world will not be what it is. We are all connected. So our problem is your problem, and our issues are your issues. And you need to be as alarmed as we are when we see ourselves struggling, because if we are away, this whole world collapses. And I think that if we are intentional about recognizing we may not live in the same places, but we depend on the same system, and we need the system to work for everyone so that we can all be healthy and whole and become better, then if we live there, then I think that we will see a decrease in a lot of issues that plagued us before the pandemic.
Man, and I like even the point you just raised about the one kind exposure. It is the acknowledgement. So on the Black Lives Matter piece, y'all, this is why this is my pastor, okay? But on the Black Lives Matter piece, do you know, like, all, like, so many folks in our community just want just to be seen, like, for who they really are, not as 3/5, not as less than, not as an essential worker, but as I've been saying, not an essential worker, but an essential life. Like, if that bridge could be crossed, like, if the church could say that, if, and I know it's not all church, but I'm saying as a whole, if the government could say that, local, state, and federal, if your job could say that, like, life would shift for so many people, and they would be empowered in real, legitimate ways. Like, okay, now I can embrace and walk in my gifts and my talents. Okay, now I can go forth and help someone else because you just see me. Like, that's the crazy thing.
Well, I'll tell you, part of me living in that intersection of, these white and Black church worlds means that I am exposed a lot to the white ignorance. And I don't even mean ignorance in a defamatory kind of way. I mean, literally, they don't see it. Like, they just don't see it until they adopt a Black child from Africa, or they adopt a Black child from the foster care system, and they see how differently their child is treated than they were. And I think that, one of the hopes that I have in being able to speak into both communities is to make Blackness real. Like, and I don't go in there and try to, like, whitewash myself. So, like, I'm going to give you this word, but I'm still going to be me. I'm going to be like, is my wig on all right? Hold on, let me check it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I need to make Blackness real for them, because I am no different than the Black girl who you see on the street. My husband is an incredible Black man who is from Watts. Like, you don't know who you're stepping over in the process of you coming up. And I think that the more that we can make it real, whether it's through a pandemic, and that's why I think when we talk about all things working together for the good, it doesn't mean that all things feel good. It doesn't mean that all things don't have grief connected to them. But the good that can come out of this is to really see that we are real people. And I think that the more that we can have people who speak out and speak up, that we'll see that change. No, Chad, I'm on an interview. Don't, just, my kids.
Chad, come.
Who is that, Kenzie? He's on now. Praise the Lord. Oh, come here.
We talked. I had a lot of little shady moments with the. Did you see me lean trying to see the baby? I'm like, where's the baby? Hi.
Wear a visor. It's hot outside.
Just wearing a visor. It's hot outside.
You cute, girl. You cute.
Thank you. Bye, mommy.
Bye.
I said a lot of my shady jokes. about the church. I won't continue. But one of my favorite moments in church anything was with you. We did at Women Evolve, the first Women Evolve. You had this pajama conversation that was epic. Like, it was me and you and Cora, and it was Caitlin, right? Caitlin was there?
Yes.
And it was just this, I forgot we were on stage for a minute. It was like this real raw, like we sitting here like a Waiting to Exhale movie in our pajamas, like shooting the stuff, talking about everything from, fertility issues to relationships and, all of that and how that intersects with the church. And it was so powerful. And I think the one hope I have for the church is that they are able, each individual person is able to live their raw, real, transparent, authentic self like you are. There just really is no gap from your public appearance to who you are on my text or on, in that pajama moment. And I'm grateful for that, because I think that it shows people that they can say cuz 10 times in one sentence if they choose to with their child or and pray in the next sentence, pray in the next moment. And I love that you will call me to the carpet, at this and on one hand, and in this next sentence be encouraging and inspiring. And I just am so
Nobody calls Angela Rye to the carpet. Nobody does.
Just remember, you heard it here first. And if I need the screenshot, I will. Just like she like, oh no, not the text. But no, I just am grateful for that, and I hope that in this moment to reset for all of us, that we will at least do that. I feel like we owe that to ourselves, and we owe that to every organization, every business that we start. Like, we owe that to ourselves to be exactly who we are. Like, what are we trying to become, and for what?
And I think if we're able to do that, then life won't be as exhausting. Life is really exhausting when you have to be different people no matter where you go.
When you're performing.
Yes.
Putting on. Yeah. Trying to
and I
keep
think
up.
that's why you see some of the greatest performers, like when they're performing, and then when they're not, they are off Instagram for 3 months. I'm thinking of Beyonce. I was worried about her during this pandemic. I was like, Beyonce ain't posted. How are the kids doing? She's like, I'm at home minding my business. But
yeah, and that's a whole other thing. If y'all don't know, Sarah is big on y'all minding your business.
Oh goodness, it'll bless your life. It'll change your whole life.
Right, you like, that's enough business right
somebody
there.
to mind their business right now. This podcast is almost over, but you're not minding your business. He's not going to let you escape minding your business in this season.
Well, preach a word, Sarah. Tell me how to preach that word, at least, since they didn't want me to learn how to preach from you. Tell me how to preach the mind your business word. Tell me how to spread that message, how to evangelize that.
It starts with self. Mm-hmm. I think that when we begin to mind our business, that we encourage other people to do the same. Yeah. And when people ask you questions that are none of their business, you could say, you see how many times I asked you about your relationship? Not a one. That's how I like to maintain my life. Huh? No.
I know that's not what you say.
That's what I be wanting to tell people on Instagram. They be like, "Ooh, you gaining weight." I be like, "How many times have I talked to you today about your weight?" Not a one. Okay.
Do they really say that on there?
People say anything on social media.
I'm about to be checked. Now, you shouldn't have told me that. Because I'm out here trying to free myself from my former self, and now I done went right back into
Now that we're live streaming, like, we brought the cameras in closer, because usually there are people in the room, so the live stream experience is a little distant. So we brought the cameras in closer. But, this stage is up on stairs, so one of the angles is, like, right up underneath. And nobody wins when the camera is right up underneath.
Try it, everybody. Try it.
Nobody wins when it's up there like that.
No.
So I don't know. People need to leave me alone.
But the other thing is, I want people to know in this moment, because I am like the protective big sister, even though she be sounding like the boss. For Sarah, like, y'all run up on her if you want to. Like, try me. Like, test my salvation. Run up on me if you want to, or my sister. Okay, like, I'm not playing. If I see the comments like that, I'm gonna drag you. Like, I had to probably rededicate my life yesterday because somebody said something crazy on my comments while me and Lennar were live for our sibling rivalry.
Which is hilarious. I try to mind my business. But when I see him commenting, calling me Felicia. You know, I try not to laugh at it.
You're so rude. I just was defending you, and here you go talking about. I told so many people this, but like my first red carpet picture ever. Well, it wasn't red, but it was a BT Awards thing. I'm like, they were like, Angela, turn around so we can see the back of the dress. My whole back was out, so I'm like this and the thing, and I'm like, you're real uncomfortable. That's the picture that Leonard decides to go under and says, your back is ashy. First of all, my back wasn't ashy. Second of all, you see I look super insecure and uncomfortable in this picture, and that's the one you go after. The other thing that has happened multiple times on this live podcast is we've been talking about, you know, our most fragile moments growing up. 6th grade, like I had peach fuzz. Okay, I had peach fuzz in 6th grade.
Come on, share your testimony.
Oh yeah, and I started telling him, I'm like, I started getting laser hair removal later, but I was doing all kinds of stuff, tweezing, I shave it off, I was doing all kinds of stuff. Leonard, every podcast now is like your mustache, something. He just rude.
Don't you picking at my insecurities?
Right, and that's what I said, and I was like, that's okay, I'm gonna get you back. Take your hat off, hairline.
Oh.
Hairline. But anyway, my point in saying all this to y'all is don't do that to Sarah, because I'll fight you.
And don't do it to Angela, because I really won't have it. Now, I will say that when you're trying to
laugh.
No, I'm going to laugh with you, but then I'm going to have to get them together. I'm going to have to be Eve.
I believe that.
Eve knows better but doesn't do better. I'm going to let Eve handle them, and then I'm going to be nice to you. No, but you know what I do tell people? Like,
what?
Because I think on social media, like if someone says something crazy to me, it's one thing. If I say something back then, they're like, oh, you're a pastor, you're supposed to be doing this. But what I have decided to do, this is going to challenge you and some of your listeners, right?
Okay.
Is to be vulnerable about how it made me feel.
Yeah.
You see, people, when you respond in vitriol, it gives them something to go back and forth with.
Yeah.
But when you say something like, I'm actually kind of self-conscious about that, and so I'm like, sometimes I've deleted a comment and DM someone, like, I'm sure you didn't mean any harm, but what you said kind of plays into an insecurity that I have.
Wow.
So I went ahead and removed that, and maybe you can just be conscious in the future that I'm not just a public figure, I'm a person. And so I would ask that you respect that. And there's not really a whole lot you can say, but what I really said though is mind your business. You know what I'm saying? But
To bring it full circle. Mind your business. Have you received, this is my last question on this, have you received anything back where you were like, really? Or has it all been like you melted somebody away, melted the defensiveness and the craziness away? Like they are coming at you because they are also insecure about something. That's why they got time.
No, I've never had me go to someone in vulnerability, turn around, and then someone's just like said something crazy to me. But I do think it does come down to really knowing who you're talking to. Like there are some people who are literally just trolling, and I just block them. But when people who I think like I've maybe seen you liking my stuff or commenting on my stuff, or you said something where tone would really make the difference, so I can't decipher, then I will say something then.
Yeah.
But when I do it like that, I'm telling you what's from the heart reaches the heart. When you say something that's from the heart, if there's any humanity in a person, they can at least see it from a different perspective.
Ooh, I love that, Sarah. That's a word. That's a whole gem. Well, I am grateful, sis, for you spending this time with me. I did miss you, and part of this was selfish. I just wanted to lay my eyes on you. And I can't wait to get my biscuit recipe. So I got 2 things out of this deal.
I texted to you. It's waiting on you. Let me know when you make them.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm going to send you a picture as long as they come out right. I made some crab cakes last night that fell apart.
Oh, she better not.
I tried to do it without breadcrumbs because I was like, let me do this without. Anyway, that didn't work. So
what do you use? Just like eggs? What do you use?
Yeah, egg and a little bit of flour, but and I try to use gluten-free flour.
No, sis. You know that gluten-free, like we bless the Lord for the gluten-free.
Don't do that. My mama's gluten-sensitive.
I know, but we need something now. They be trying to give you that gluten-free bread and stuff. It doesn't do what it needs.
The gluten-free English muffins are good. You should
try
really?
Those.
Yes.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm going to try this crab cake situation again. I was sad.
Put it on a biscuit. Make them biscuits.
I know.
Make a crab cake biscuit. There's some oil on that. I feel something on that.
Listen. Okay, I hear you. Well, anyway, I'm gonna call you later to talk about this Clark stitches because we didn't finish. It was amazing, but I'm so appreciative of you spending this time with me, and I know you're in the middle of homeschooling and building some new business. What's coming next? Tell me what's coming next and how we can support you. That's important.
I am working on a new podcast series where I'm just interviewing people about their journey to evolving. So I've been doing interviews for that. I enjoy it. That's the next time I'm going to stalk you.
Yeah.
And, you know, the world is shifting. So I'm looking at some virtual experiences and tools and resources that help women to really manifest the dimensions of their purpose and destiny. So,
yes. Well, I am here for all of that. You know, I'm a call away. I'm going to enlist you in trying to figure out how we're going to get church people to vote in the fall and to fill out the census.
You know the problem? Look, okay.
No,
you probably. This is the problem. I have to be careful. Okay,
no. Say it like you tell me in text.
This is the problem. There are some. First of all, neither party fully represents the beliefs of a fundamental Christian. Okay.
Yeah.
Which means that you end up having to pick like the lesser of two evils. Mm-hmm. And there are some issues that are so important to some Christians that they are willing to compromise in areas that are unthinkable for other Christians.
That's right.
And I think that it's difficult for us to even tell people to vote without telling them who to vote for. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes that is an abuse of our platform because we're leading them in a direction that it ends up creating division within the church. So we need tools on how to tell people to vote without telling them who to necessarily vote for.
Yeah.
It doesn't go up against some of the issues that are really important. It's really hard because abortion is a hard line issue in a lot of Christian communities. But Black lives actually do matter. And the education system is really important. And unfortunately, I think the beliefs that would really get us there don't always lie within one particular party.
Yeah.
So that's the I'm telling you, I think that's the greatest challenge that the church has, is empowering people to vote while not telling them who to vote for. Because if you say no, tell them who to vote for too, then you are going to have people who say, no, abortion is a serious issue. We've got to go with Trump. It doesn't matter. Lives matter. But then you're going to have people who reflect beliefs that we have where we say, no, the education system, the disparities in the Black community, the criminal justice systems are just as important as a woman's right to keep her baby. And so this is where I fall on the fence. And it creates so much division in the church that I do think it's easier to just kind of say vote, vote, vote without really getting into the issues. I think that's the greatest issue that we have.
Yeah, I get that. It's a tough one because
you're supposed to help me.
Well, I'm ready to help. I'm happy to have that conversation, and we can have a whole conversation about that. But I'm so grateful for your time. I am hope-filled, and I'm so happy to see you. And I can't wait for church on the live stream. Just know I'll be back there, amen, y'all, okay? Especially when you come do the prayer. You can get it since she didn't teach us all the way how to pray today.
Or preach. I failed this class.
No,
okay.
You didn't. No, you didn't. I got a biscuit recipe out of this. I think that the greatest message for today is to mind your business.
Amen.
And also just to remember our humanity and the interconnectedness of it all. And I think that is the greatest message we can preach. You can pray with us, though, Sarah. You know, there's a lot of people out here on prayer calls that ain't never been on a prayer call in their life because of coronavirus. So maybe you can take us out in prayer anyway. This is my prayer warrior, y'all. I love Sarah's prayers.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Father, I thank you for the gift of relationship and friendship, that even through a podcast, we can feel connected to someone who reflects our heart and hopes for this world and humanity. I don't believe that this time has been by coincidence, nor has it been random. I believe that even throughout this time together, that someone has a new way of looking at things. Maybe it's faith, maybe it's politics, maybe it's even race. Father, it is my prayer that whatever they received in this moment would just be a seed, and that as your word says, you would continue to bring people who will water it, and that the sun will shine on it, and what took place in this moment will take root and produce fruit. Father, I'm praying for peace. I'm praying for faith. I'm praying for creativity. But most importantly, Father, teach us how to rest in the midst of the unknown. Just like Jesus was sleeping in that boat in the middle of the storm. Father, may we lay hold of that level of rest. So, Father, speak to the storm as only you can do. And when the storm won't cease, allow us to find rest in the midst of it all. We dedicate this time over to you. We say thank you. Thank you for this love. Thank you for this friendship. In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks, sis. I definitely want people to support you. Women Evolve is a whole thing. Sarah Jakes Roberts on the gram and everywhere. There's a whole thing. Make sure y'all subscribe to this YouTube channel too. youtube.com/Angela Rye. And Sarah, just thank you. Love you so much.
I love
everybody hugs.
I will.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of On One with Angela Rye Masterclass. I hope that you learned some, you laughed some, and you were inspired more. And you want to know how you can do that even more? You just have to subscribe. Go to youtube.com/Angela Rye and hit subscribe. We want you to be the first to know about upcoming episodes. If there's something you want to see, if there's something you really love, or if you hated it, put that in the comments below. I hope you go easy on the hate. I'm a little sensitive.